Hey guys, tonight we explore the mouth-watering yet rugged world of Viking food traditions, delving into what filled the bellies of these seafaring warriors. Viking cuisine wasn't just about sustaining life, it was about thriving amidst the harsh terrain and celebrating their spoils. Imagine yourself stepping into a world where the air is thick with the aroma of roasted meat, and the sound of lively chatter fills the mead hall. Candles flicker against wooden walls, casting a dancing glow over the faces of bearded warriors and their families gathered for a feast. You feel a palpable energy, a community brought together over the shared joy of a hearty meal. While today's gastropubs serve up meticulously crafted dishes, the Vikings championed simplicity and functionality, often with ingredients that were much less polished. Their feasts were a testament to their resourcefulness and ability to harness the land and sea around them. The Vikings' dining practices might sound appealing, but face it, you probably wouldn't survive the mead bloat or the pungent odor of some meals. But that's part of the fun of imagining. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love for you to stick around for more time-hopping adventures together. As we dive deeper, don't forget to comment with your location and local time. It's always fascinating to see where you all are tuning in from, very much like the interconnected world of the Vikings themselves. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The Viking Age was a period that spanned from the late 8th century to the early 11th century. Vikings were more than marauding pirates, they were also extraordinary navigators and traders, with extensive networks that stretched from Europe to Asia. Their culinary practices reflected this blend of adventure, necessity, and social bonding. Viking cuisine was entrenched in the cycles of nature, reliant on what could be hunted, foraged, farmed, or traded. The seasonal availability dictated their menus, much like a modern farm-to-table restaurant. Before you get too comfortable with visions of fresh produce and hearty soups, prepare yourself for a culinary twist. Vikings also embraced some genuinely exotic, and let's say, challenging, meals. Yes, we're talking about certain acquired tastes that would make a Scandinavian cheese scowl look tame. Fermented shark, anyone? As we travel further in this story, remember that the Viking world was a land teeming with contrasts and surprises. They balanced a Spartan lifestyle of warriors with the creature comforts that a successful raid could afford. Imagine lounging in a great hall, tucking into succulent pieces of meat, the richness of which contrasts with the simple, rugged surroundings. Historians still argue whether the Vikings' food was spontaneous or structured like a Nordic master chef's secret recipe book. Some suggest their strategy was opportunistic, adapting and adopting anything edible or novel during their expansive travels. Others posit a more ritualistic approach, a reflection of their structured social strata and seafaring conquests. And so our journey begins. Through roaring feasts and private family meals, stocking up on provisions for those long sea voyages, lingering in smoky halls with a fragrant assortment of food and drink. A culinary exploration not just of taste, but a testament to survival, and sometimes, simply to show off. Today's adventure offers a glimpse into what the hard-working Vikings prepared, preserved, and enjoyed. You'll engage with their culinary landscape as if you were there, a traveler traversing the ancient Viking table. Let's explore the next segment of this absorbing saga filled with culinary curiosities and hearty Viking delights. As the northern wind whispers tales of the ancients, you find yourself stepping into the heart of Viking life, the grand hall where feasts unfolded. Picture long tables made of rough-hewn wood lining the cavernous room, each surface crowded with pewter plates and iron cups, illuminated by flickering torches. The atmosphere buzzes with an undercurrent of excitement, much like the feeling you get in a lively pub right before the band starts playing. The feast environment is a vibrant tapestry of sounds and smells. The crackling of logs in the massive stone fireplace mingles with boisterous laughter and spirited conversation. Imagine the rich aroma of roasted meats swirling through the air, entwined with the earthy scent of freshly baked bread. As you watch, a giant haunch of meat is carried to the table, ready to be shared among the warriors and their families. You brace yourself, hoping not to be the recipient of an enthusiastic splash of mead as someone gestures exuberantly. Viking feasts weren't merely about eating, they were profound social events. These gatherings represented a culmination of harvests, successful hunts, and the storied returns from raids or trades. Such meals were a test of endurance and elbows, an opportunity to indulge, build alliances, and tell tales of valor. Food was plentiful, and spirits even more so. Imagine witnessing a giant tankard being passed around, brimming with mead, amber in the firelight, its sweetness belying a potent kick that may leave you slightly unsteady if you're not careful. One particularly intriguing aspect of the Viking feast was the culture of communal sharing. Food was a social equalizer among the Vikings. Tribal leaders and warriors sat shoulder to shoulder with farmers and traders, all sharing from the same central dishes. This practice naturally encouraged conversation, forming a bond that extended beyond kinship into a broader sense of tribe and community. Historians depict these meals as chaotic yet structured affairs. There were shared responsibilities among attendees. Everyone from children to elders had roles to play. Serving food was an esteemed task, often carried out by those who were trusted implicitly, as the best slices of meat made their way to the table's upper echelons, where the chieftains and honored guests sat. And how could we ignore the laughter and shenanigans? Because where there is drink and song, jests are sure to follow. Picture a spontaneous challenge erupting among the boisterous diners to determine who could consume the largest chunk of roast in one sitting. While you may wish to sit this one out, it's hard to stifle a grin at the playful antics. In describing Viking feasts, certain quirky practices deserve mention. Toasts often involved intricate rhymes or recitations of genealogies, each toast a proud recounting of lineage and achievements. Even if you can't quite catch the words, you feel the weight of tradition seep into each line. The repetitive rituals created a rhythm, a steady drumbeat complementing the less structured revelry around it. Yet for all their merriment, these gatherings were steeped in much more serious subtext, the shadow of Odin himself sitting among them, judging, and sometimes influencing, the course and outcome of the feast. Tales were told, not just of past warriors, but of aspirations and dreams for their people. In other words, each meal was a microcosm of Viking life, practical, ceremonious, and filled with those moments that stitch today to tomorrow. Although recreating such a feast today might raise a few eyebrows, especially if you plan to borrow that tankard of mead, it's easy to see the timelessness of sitting around a kitchen table with family and friends, cherishing the joy that comes from sharing a meal. With the clamor of the feast still echoing in your ears, let's venture beyond into the Viking larders, where myriad ingredients lay waiting to be transformed into the hearty meals that sustained these noble seafarers. Venturing deeper into the Viking world, you step out of the noisy mead hall and into the quieter domains of the fields and seashores where Viking sustenance begins. Imagine crisp Nordic air filling your lungs as you walk into vast open spaces where the raw ingredients for Viking meals are cultivated. The broad expanse of barley field sways gently, golden stalks whispering secrets of ancient harvests. Barley wasn't just a staple, it was a pillar of culinary survival, whether ground into flour for bread or fermented into that famous mead. As you wander further, the salty scent of the nearby coast draws you to the shoreline. The Vikings, with their keen knowledge of maritime life, were unsurprisingly skilled fishermen. The abundant seas provided fish like herring, cod, and salmon, key components of their diet. You might picture yourself casting a net into the waters, eyes scanning for that telltale flicker of silver scales, anticipating the thrumming excitement of a fresh catch. In both field and sea, the Vikings displayed an impressive adaptiveness. They made ample use of every season's bounty, storing and preserving food meticulously to ensure sustenance throughout the harsh winters. For them, this wasn't just about food, it was an insurance policy against the uncertainty of life in the north. You might blink in amazement at how little was wasted, a minimalism that modern zero-waste advocates could only aspire to. Viking palates were not easily intimidated by stronger flavors, something quite evident when you realize they had a penchant for hakarl, or fermented shark. Let's face it, this isn't quite like grabbing sushi with friends. The thought of maturing a shark until it becomes rather pungent is enough to tempt a wry smile or two. Yet, it was a delicacy honed over centuries, signaling both status and the complex relationship the Vikings had with their environment. Historians paint a vivid picture of Viking ingenuity, but they still argue whether the introduction of certain ingredients was more about practical necessity than culinary desire. They could be sometimes as pragmatic as you choosing to devour that last unappetizing salad lingering in your fridge, just to avoid the guilt of waste. Yet, to truly understand the Vikings' passion for sustenance is to peer beyond the practices and into why they ate what they did. Imagine meals that connected them to the earth, intertwined with ancient beliefs. Food was as much a bridge to their gods as their culture. While we're pretty sure Thor might have passed on the fermented creations, his presumed fondness for hearty meals is barely up for debate. Amidst these fields, forests and coastal zones, the Vikings' dietary approach might sound romantic, until you recall the labor-intensive and chilly conditions they braved to harvest these raw treasures. In many ways, Vikings embody today's Ironman triathletes, but with a predilection for more hazardous extracurricular activities, like fending off raiding parties or the odd mythological beast. Every meal linked them to their territory and identity, fostering a sense of resilience, a reminder of how they thrived at the edges of the inhabitable world. As your imaginary walk through the Viking lands draws you further, you gain an appreciation not just for what Vikings ate, but how each culinary decision echoed through their lives, tales, and even myths. Leaving behind the vibrant coasts and waving fields, we now step into their ingenious methods of preserving the precious bounty, secrets that help sustain them during the long, dark winters. Grab a durable cloak, for the next part of our journey dives into the inventive world of Viking preservation techniques. Ensconced in the realm of Viking food preservation, you find yourself surrounded by the rustic charm of a bustling homestead, the beating heart of a resourceful society. Imagine yourself standing in a smoky hut, the air rich with the scent of curing meat and the earthy tones of drying herbs. This space is central to the Viking survival playbook, a corner of the world where time-honored preservation techniques were perfected. The Vikings were masters of keeping their food fresh long after harvest or hunt. Envision thick slabs of salmon hanging from racks, patiently absorbing the flavors of wood smoke. Smoking wasn't just about taste, it was a practical approach to increase longevity. The fires, tended methodically, imbued the fish with an enduring, nutty aroma, changing them from mere provisions into a Viking delicacy. As you wander through this storied environment, consider the myriad ways Vikings preserved their bounty. Drying was another pillar of keeping food viable year-round. The bracing northern winds themselves were allies, whisking away moisture with their relentless breath. You might find yourself brushing your fingers over strands of drying herbs, the sage and thyme whispering tales of sunlit fields even as frost crackles outside. The spectrum of their food preservation was broad, ranging from fermenting to salting. Salting, in particular, was vital, given its ability to prevent spoilage and retain nutrition. Giant barrels filled with salted herring and pork-lined storage spaces, each a testament to the Viking understanding of survival. However, it's worth taking a moment to appreciate that historians still argue over the exact origins and extent of some preservation techniques, just as friends debate the best way to store leftover pizza. Quizzically, though the Vikings engaged in fermenting, you might privately question if you'd employ similar methods in your kitchen. Fermentation, akin to the creation of their arguably acquired taste for Hakarl, was not for the faint-hearted. Despite its unorthodox elasticity, the practice persisted, crafted by necessity and perhaps a touch of mischief. But it wasn't all about methods resembling a chemistry lab. Simplicity took center stage as well, with root cellars ingeniously carved into the earth, functioning much like your best friend's deep freeze for those embarrassing late-night ice cream cravings. Apples and cabbages tucked inside remained as lively as spring mornings long after summer had faded. In your imagined time travel experience, you're given the unique chance to engage with these techniques firsthand. Taking a seat by the fire, you might try to replicate the intricate balancing act of air-drying fish, keeping a close watch to avoid the most seasoned outcome becoming a chew toy for the family dog. All these methods were tinged with social relevance, born out of communal practice and passed through generations. They were as social as today's potluck dinners, warranting collaboration as whole families joined forces. In a way, food preservation symbolized more than innovation. It was a communal bond, uniting families and tribes through shared necessity. The holistic approach of Vikings to ensuring enough food spoke to their deep understanding of the natural world, celebrating life's tenacity through ingenious culinary artistry. With full appreciation for these practical aspects, we now move into the bounty of meats that graced the Viking table, filled with flavors both wild and domestic. Prepare to indulge in a meaty adventure as we explore what truly brought satisfaction to a Viking's plate. Stepping once more into the heart of Viking culinary culture, you find yourself enveloped by the sizzling aroma of roasting meats. Imagine a round spit, slowly turning over a crackling fire. The rich scent of boar mingles with the smoke, dancing in the air as the juices hiss and sizzle upon the embers. You can almost feel the warmth of the flames on your cheeks and hear the rhythmic crackle, this ancient kitchen symphony captivating your senses. Meat was a revered element of the Viking diet, and they had no shortage of variety. From the wild game snagged on hunts to the livestock tended right by their homes, meat was a symbol of prosperity and vitality. Your inner carnivore, or perhaps cautious observer, might take note of the often less conventional cuts favored by these rugged Norsemen. Among the favorites was boar, its robust flavor a testament to life's wildness. You picture the effort required to hunt such an animal, an endeavor as taxing as downloading the latest DLC without Wi-Fi. Alongside boar, the hearty flavors of goat, pork, and lamb thrived on Viking tables. Each cut told stories of the land, echoing the symbiotic relationship between the Vikings and their environment. And let's not forget the majestic reindeer, a once silver silhouette against the snow, now expertly carved and shared with gusto. The reindeer was versatile both as a source of meat and materials, epitomizing sustainability long before it was trendy. You can almost hear a Viking elder narrating his latest reindeer sighting with the alacrity of that friend who just got back from an overly Instagrammed holiday. Vikings indulged in every part of the animal. Yes, snout to tail would be a fair description of their resourcefulness. Boiled sheep's head, for one, might seem an eccentric choice for brunch today, yet it provided a strangely comforting nourishment. They found value where others saw none. It was the ultimate social connector, simultaneously a mirror and magnifier of Viking customs. The preservation tactics you previously explored made a reappearance here, their overlap revealing a culture adept at optimizing their resources. The curative techniques that preserved fish also savored meats. Cured meats, much like today's charcuterie, had their roots firmly planted in survival, offering delight at both generous feasts and humble homes. Historians often wonder about the precise mixtures of flavors the Vikings enjoyed. Some accounts hint at the subtle use of herbs rubbed into meats during cooking, sparking images of tender cuts imbued with the forest's essence. Then as now, seasoning turned nourishment into pleasure, transforming each meal into an event. Among the most curious of culinary practices was blood pudding, a concoction that isn't exactly top of anyone's wish list yet remains persistently fascinating. To a modern palate, it might present a mystery, while to a Viking, it was a prized delicacy, binding their culture as tightly as its own ingredients. Even amid such diverse meals, it's fascinating to consider whether Vikings had favorite dishes or if their palates adapted out of sheer necessity and availability. Theirs was not a world of preference but of abundance, when they could manage it, and creativity, answering the age-old question, "What's for dinner?" with natural flair and utilitarian execution. As daunting as their meals might sound in today's world of farm-to-table brunches and plant-based burgers, there's a simplicity you can't help but respect. Amid their cold climate and demanding lifestyle, they feasted with the same vigor they approached life, incorporating creativity and community in each serving. With your appetite for hearty meats artfully piqued, let us wander further into the world of grains and breads that complemented these bountiful spreads. The next chapter uncovers the understated luxury of Viking grains, an essential counterpart to their protein-rich feasts. As you delve deeper into Viking culinary arts, you venture into fields brimming with golden waves of grain, a focal point for everyday Viking sustenance. In these sun-drenched meadows, you catch glimpses of men and women working diligently, their hands nimble as they scythe through barley and wheat. Imagine the rhythmic swish of sickles accompanied by soft laughs and shared stories, a communal endeavor to gather the granules of life. Grains were much more than a dietary staple. They were the foundation on which warmth, comfort, and energy were built. You envisage sacks of freshly harvested barley being milled into flour, plumes of powder wafting upwards as women worked tirelessly, kneading dough by hand. These grains became the structural backbone of Viking meals, transformed into loaves of hearty bread to be shared by all around the table. Viking bread was robust and dense, much like the society that baked it. Mixing barley with oats and rye, sometimes with whatever else they could forage, these loaves were baked in open fires or simple stone ovens. As you break open an imaginary loaf, you might imagine the aromatic, nutty scent mingling with smoke and sea salt, a nourishing balm against the chill of Nordic winds. The bread's tough exterior gave way to a nourishing interior, a triumph of Viking perseverance, and you can't help but wonder if their satisfaction with such simple fare was something modern eaters longed for. Perhaps their loaves weren't boasting fleur-de-sel or artisan tins, yet they provided strength and vitality to meet the day's demands. Occasionally, porridge and gruel graced Viking breakfasts, as oats prepared over open fires awaited rapt attention. Vikings had a saying that manner of eating signified breeding, though what your attitude is towards oatmeal might invite its own friendly critique. Still, the filling, thick texture of these oat-based meals warmed both hearts and bellies in the early morning cold. The creativity in Viking grain utilization extended beyond mere sustenance, fostering a vibrant domestic culture. Gathering around the hearth, families not only baked but shared recipes, each kneading the stories of their neighbors into their loaves. The communal bakeries of today, with their confluence of laughter and shared tradition, capture some essence of Viking spirit. Historians are often fascinated by the alleged flatbreads Vikings made, thin, pliable, sometimes containing wild herbs for flavor. Did these bear resemblance to modern-day lavish or tortillas? A debate still simmers on details of preparation and presentation, but their existence points to a love for variety, even within simplicity. To complement this tale, we discover Vikings often sweetened their bread loaves using honey. This golden nectar elevated even the simplest dish to a dessert-like delight, the bee's labor shining through in each bite. So take heed next time you drizzle honey over toast, as in the Viking Age, it whispers a story of nature's rich bounty. Reflecting on their culinary resilience and ingenuity, your culinary appreciation extends beyond mere butter and eggs, now recognizing a culture that captured nourishment from the natural bounty surrounding them. As we round out our exploration of grains, our imaginations next drift towards the lush dairylands gracing Viking territories. There, amid the rolling meadows, the Vikings honed their craft of cheese-making and dairying, a tradition set to enrich their palates further. Venturing into the verdant pastures of Viking lands, the air is filled with a gentle mooing of cows grazing contentedly. Picture yourself standing on lush green fields, a serene contrast to the often fierce Viking seascapes that we picture. Here, amidst rolling hills and dense greenery, you find the soft underbelly of Viking life, the world of dairy. Dairy products were integral to the Viking diet, providing a vital source of nutrition. While today's farmers manage with stainless steel vats and digital thermometers, Viking dairy relied on methods passed down through the generations. The simple clinks of wooden pails and the rhythmic squirts of fresh milk hitting them are a testament to an age-old craft that sustained life. The Vikings were particularly fond of cheese, which was as diverse as it was essential. Each farmstead boasted its own variety, textured with unique flavors based on the specific grazing lands and the season's whims. Imagine taking a chunk of Viking cheese, firm yet yielding when warmed close to the fire's glow, its tang both comforting and invigorating. These cheeses would often serve as staples during long voyages, providing sustenance far from land. It encourages a thought: could this have been an early form of Viking trail mix? Perhaps not full of chocolate chips and nuts, but certainly a companion in times of need. Despite its mild manner, dairy did have its counterpoint, a rebellious side in the form of soured milk and skyr. Skyr, a thick, yogurt-like substance, was both a treat and a necessity. High in protein and with a texture akin to the richest Greek yogurt, it played a nutritional role similar to that of its modern-day descendants. Next time you enjoy a bowl of skyr topped with berries, you're sharing in a 1,000-year-old tradition. The Icelandic sagas frequently mention these dairy products, highlighting their immense cultural significance. Some scholars suggest that dairy consumption was a factor in Norse resilience, offering sustenance even amidst invasions and harsh winters. However, there's playful debate among historians about the precise role it played in the development of Viking physiques, particularly during the leaner winter months. In this pastoral picture, let's not overlook the vital byproduct of dairying, butter. Revered for its richness, butter was considered an esteemed symbol during Viking feasts, far from the casually spread condiment of modern sandwiches. During harsh winters, it could be traded or used as a form of currency, such was its value. Historians still ponder over the methods by which butter might have been stored, with some hypothesizing about innovative wraps made from other organic materials. Yet, humor weaves its way through the serious, as legends suggest that mischievous activity revolved around dairy thefts. Picture brawny Vikings wrapped in cloaks, stealthily making off with their neighbors' fresh churn, an ancient equivalent of the modern-day midnight snack raid. As you stand in the fictional dairy unit of a Viking household, let your imagination explore the possibilities sitting under the quaint tapestry of simple daily routines. From pungent blocks of cheese eagerly shared among friends, to the sweet sourness of skyr, dairy painted a broad canvas of tasting notes and tradition. Bridging this pastoral realm, you're invited to plunge back into the vivacious world of Norse brews, the drinks that washed down feasts and soothed seafarers. Prepare yourself to step into the next chapter, where meads, lavish, and shuffled steps transform dining into an unforgettable experience. In the bustling heart of a Viking settlement, you discover a communal scene steeped in an age-old tradition, the art of brewing. Picture yourself walking into a lively gathering where massive drinking horns are being passed around, each filled to the brim with the tantalizing promise of mead. While the Vikings didn't invent alcohol, they elevated its cultural significance, entwining it with their social and ceremonial lives. Mead, the storied nectar of the gods, was a popular Viking beverage made from fermented honey, water, and herbs. Picture its golden hue catching the firelight, shimmering like captured sunlight in your hands. You take a theoretical sip, and the sweet, robust flavors dance on your tongue, often infused with herbs like juniper or spices such as cinnamon and ginger. Each batch might tell a different story, the flavors varying according to the brewer's flair and available ingredients. Lavish were also a staple, brewed with basic grains and fermenting agents, suggesting an ancient form of the craft beer culture that tantalizes today's hipsters. Often brewed in homes, ale was the go-to drink for everyday consumption, a preferred thirst quencher after a long day's labor. However, be wary of its potency, as even the hardiest Viking had been known to stagger beneath its influence, eliciting a sympathy you might confide to your own overindulgent weekend tales. The fermentation process captivated the local imaginations, often becoming woven into both daily routines and mythological accounts, linking fermentation with divine inspiration. The transformation of simple ingredients into such potent brews was, some say, seen as nothing short of magical. So much so that scholars still debate whether Vikings had an early grasp of yeast's microbiotic alchemy, akin to today's scientists. Historians reveal an intriguing dichotomy. While drinking was an everyday practice, it wasn't freewheeling or reckless. Alcoholic beverages were heavily featured in toasts and ceremonies, deepening their cultural importance beyond simple indulgence. Imagine a Viking ceremony, where each sip isn't just a taste but a pledge, binding warriors with oaths and bonds of allegiance fortified by shared draughts from communal vessels. The ritualistic aspect of drinking was far removed from today's casual happy hour. In the quieter corners of settlements, those not averse to the heady buzz might have indulged in their brewed creations just a bit too liberally, leading to legendary hangovers whispered about by traders and chroniclers alike. You might wince at some tales of excess, where the gods alone knew if morning-after remedies ever topped a Viking laundry list. Accompanying these potent beverages were notions of community, a testament to Viking cultural ingenuity, showing us that even then, drinks were deeply social experiences. Sharing a horn of ale wasn't only refreshment, it was about the strengthening of friendships and the solidifying of trust. As the night deepens in your imagined setting, the music of storytelling and laughter weaves with the sounds of clinking horns, a gentle reminder of how these fermented steeps were the unsung heroes of Viking connection. With an admiration for their brewing mastery filling your thoughts, our exploration now travels into the world of seasonal fruits, vegetables, and wild edibles. So gather your wits, and maybe that antacid, as you sidle into Viking gardens and wild across fields and forests. Encounter the subtle art of balancing nature's bounty, a task as integral to their diet as it is an extension of their epic culinary journey. As dawn breaks over the Viking homestead, you find yourself wandering into a world filled with the vibrant hues of berries, leaves, and countless other verdant delights. Imagine strolling through a bustling Viking garden or into the edge of a forest, where the work of gathering nature's bounty begins in earnest. The crisp scent of dew-kissed greenery envelopes you, a reminder of the ethereal beauty lying at the heart of Viking sustenance. Fruits and vegetables may not immediately spring to mind as Viking staples, but these elements were indeed woven into their diet, especially during the warmer months. Imagine gathering clusters of wild berries, like lingonberries and cloudberries, their jewel tones sparking a delightful contrast against the rugged landscape. These little treasures provided bursts of sweetness, refreshingly bright against more robust meals. Interestingly, historians debate how extensively the Vikings cultivated land specifically for vegetables, some insisting vegetables were gathered more than grown, dotting the tables with cabbages, leeks, and turnips when summoned by nature's hand. Yet, carrots, possibly of purple or yellow variety before the more familiar orange, were known to add a curious splash of both color and flavor when foraged or farmed. Herbs, from thyme to dill, sprouted in gardens and woods alike, not just elevating dishes with their nuanced flavors but serving as natural medicine cabinets, pioneering the botanical trend you'd see so prevalent in today's lifestyle blogs. The cooks of the Viking world had much in common with modern culinary pioneers, using herbs fresh from the land to enhance both flavor and wellness. As you inhale the earthy perfume of the soil, note the seasonal aspect of Viking foraging pursuits. The cycle of produce mirrored their annual lives. Seasonal consumption isn't merely a modern pursuit but was intrinsic to the Viking mindset, a necessary adaptability amidst Scandinavia's harsh seasons. Incredible as it may seem, while the sun-warmed abundance of the growing season was cherished, Vikings also embraced preservation methods for these fruits and herbs. Pickling played a role here, preserving the essence of summer, capturing its beauty and nutrition in vessels for later use. Imagine tasting a jar of pickled cucumbers, crisp yet tangy, enjoyed at the peak of winter, a link back to brighter days. Fascinatingly, the notion of foreign flavor experimentation is found in research into Viking trading habits. Historians speculate about spices introduced through trade, challenging the notion of isolated flavors. Whatever the truth, one can only admire a Viking's open palate when faced with exotic seasonings carried across vast distances. Even the simplest bite from their garden could become a grand gesture. Vikings acknowledged food's shared bond between earth and eater, a wholly sensual accord that intensified mealtime sanctity. Each mouthful of forest or garden-cultivated goodness whispered gentle hymns to flavor and heritage. Thus, we close this chapter by threading nature's abundant fruits and herbs back into the broader Viking diet tapestry, taking one last appreciative glance at the lush lands yielding their gifts to these northern explorers. Let's now navigate the nuanced world of Viking feast celebrations, where status and ceremony imbued gatherings with deeper meanings. As evening falls over the Viking settlement, the anticipation of a special feast electrifies the air. Where food becomes more than nourishment, it transforms into a symbol of status and ceremony. Imagine entering a grand hall, the thrum of excitement palpable. Flickering torches cast sprawling shadows on the wooden walls adorned with shields and banners, the firelight dancing off intricate carvings depicting ancient tales and glorious battles. Such gatherings were marked by an abundance of food, reflecting the host's wealth and generosity. Here, the spectrum of flavors and textures laid before you becomes a testament to the host's capability to provide, a stage for revealing societal hierarchies and honoring guests. A meal in this context is more than indulgence. It's an orchestrated spectacle reinforcing one's standing in the complex social fabric of Viking life. Cast your gaze upon tables laden with an assortment of dishes. The prized cuts of meat take center stage, a hearty roast boar often reserved for celebrated events, engendering admiration for the master hunter who made the feast possible. Bowls of fragrant stews, their surfaces glistening with aromatic oils, stand ready to fill welcoming horn-shaped bowls, the spread a veritable celebration of communal prosperity. The way Vikings consumed their meals also testifies to the importance of status. Seating arrangements were meticulously organized, with the chieftain or head of the household presiding from a place of honor. You might imagine their guests stealing glances at their seating companions, aware that proximity to the host equaled favor and repute, a sophisticated social choreography not unfamiliar even today. Ceremonial toasts called bragerfull punctuated the evening, where ale or mead shared among attendees became more than a mere drink. Picture the participants rising to raise their horns in synchronized tribute to bold exploits and cherished pasts, using words to encircle the value of camaraderie and allegiance. Each toast, an echo of cultural resilience, assured the gathering that they stood not just as individuals but as fragments of their enchanted community history. Yet, besides the renowned Viking penchant for battles and seafaring conquests, these ceremonial feasts offered the sweet respite of storytelling. Seated around the roaring fire, skalds, the revered storytellers, wove tales of gods and heroes, their powerful narrations expertly gripping listeners, young and old. Isn't this akin to the way today's blockbuster films hold us wrapped, gathering disparate lives together through story alone? Historians indulge in playful debate over whether these celebrations more often honored the gods or those who sat at the table. Was it a moment shared with the divine, or simply a union of the living? While the precise purpose remains a vibrant topic of discourse, these conspicuous feasts truly represent the Viking tradition, one where the sanctity of food and drink blurs boundaries between the ordinary and extraordinary. As the night wears on, watch as the gatherings swell with merriment, epitomizing the Vikings' unyielding kinship to both land and sea. The depth of spirit and society spills over, washing the hall in exuberant camaraderie, immersing you in the vibrant sensation that all who feasted on Viking ground were part of something immortal. With hunger sated and spirit strong, we shift our focus to the practical side of Viking culinary arts. Next, we light our way into the hearth-lit world of Viking cooking techniques, where the alchemy of flames and earthy ingredients transform raw bounty into the legendary meals of yesteryear. Stepping into the heart of a Viking kitchen, you are enveloped by the glow of the hearth, its warmth chasing away the evening chill. The Viking kitchen, if one can call it that, was defined by simplicity and ingenuity. Imagine bustling about a cozy, smoke-filled space where everyday elements are transformed into nourishing meals through time-honored cooking techniques. Central to this process was the open hearth, a grand stone structure that served as the primary cooking and heating source. You can picture a cauldron hanging from a sturdy iron hook, bubbling with a rich stew that releases the savory aroma of meats and herbs. These cook fires, with their crackling intensity, were the true heart of the Viking home, offering a place for the family to gather and share in the toil and delight of meal preparation. Cooking methods involved very few utensils, a stark contrast to today's kitchens brimming with gadgets that we likely use once a year. Instead, Vikings relied on cast iron pots, wooden ladles, and flat stones for baking. Each tool carried stories of generations, shaped by both ancestral tradition and the lands they called home. Imagine lifting a heavy iron pot, its surface scarred by countless days in the fire's embrace, its handle worn smooth by familiar hands. Roasting was a favored technique, with meat skewered and turned slowly over an open flame. This method allowed the intense heat to seal in flavors and create the coveted crispy texture that Vikings relished. As you observe the meat turning, you might catch the tantalizing sight of juices dripping onto the fire, sending up wisps of fragrant smoke alongside its own Viking blend of forest freshness. Boiling was another common practice, not just for meats but for grains and legumes. Imagine a cauldron filled with a hearty blend of barley, beans, and vegetables, each bite flavored with the saltiness of the sea breeze or the earthiness of freshly dug root vegetables. This was the ultimate comfort food, warming both body and spirit against the looming chill of the Nordic landscape. The culture surrounding food preparation often meant techniques blended naturally with community life, revealing layers of mutual care and cooperation in each dish. Historians continue to debate whether this communal approach to cooking was guided more strongly by necessity or by a profound cultural understanding of the power in gathering. Such musings honor the altogether efficient, yet poetic nature of everyday Viking culinary arts. Viking cooks also embraced baking, albeit in its rudimentary form. Flatbreads made from a blend of available grains were laid on heated stones or cooked on rudimentary griddles, creating a sustaining base for many meals. Insert a smiling nod here for any home-cooked tradition. These flat discs mirrored the ageless pancake, a stark yet heartening parable of home. And even amid practicality, quirks persisted. An intriguing Viking cooking implement was the soapstone pot, designed to retain consistent heat, thereby reducing the need for constant tending and making it ideal for busy Viking households perhaps beckoning with children, chores, and the odd recalcitrant goat. In this storied environment, Your sensory imagination embraces the relentless hiss and pop of the fires, the warmth of kindled flames lapping against yielding dough, the rhythmic clanging of metal on metal resonating like heartbeats. Each smoke-threaded swirl weaving through your vision is a testament, not only to sustenance but to cultural craftsmanship passed down through generations. Now, having marveled at their flair for functional cooking, let us step beyond these fires and hearths into the social aspect of dining, the feasting and gatherings that transformed nourishment into a collective Viking experience unrivaled by anything else. As the soft, ambient sounds of twilight settle over the Viking lands, you find yourself whisked away into the vibrant atmosphere of a Viking feast, where dining transcends sustenance to become an immersive social gathering. Picture the central hall alive with movement, illuminated by the flicker of torches casting warm shadows that dance between the faces of gathered friends and kin. Feasting, for the Vikings, was an indispensable element of their social fabric, an occasion that forged connections and celebrated life's bounty. The air thrums with anticipation, the lyrical cadence of skalds weaving stories between the courses, as laughter punctuates the rhythms of conversation. Imagine yourself seated at a long, crowded table where each dish is shared communally, passing from hand to hand in gestures of warmth and kinship. Central to these gatherings was the art of storytelling, a tradition that informally married the dining experience with oral history. Remember that legendary prowess Vikings had for crafting tales? They came alive during these feasts, with sagas of heroes and gods spun intricately into the night. This narrative tradition wasn't merely indulgence, it was a way to reinforce cultural identity, and perhaps humor. How else do you explain that unusually exaggerated tale of Aunt Helga's legendary strength during last year's Yule festival? Amid the din, the customs of shared moments emerge. Imagine the table, a sprawling assortment of wood and pewter, adorned with meats, breads, and fruits inviting all senses. Plates? Optional. Torn-off chunks passed directly to those in reach embody a sense of immediacy, reminding you of a culture where community trumped individualism. This rustic familiarity lent itself to games and contests, spirited challenges earning merriment and status. Laughter echoed as contests of strength and dexterity unfolded, from simple arm wrestling matches to impromptu renditions of epic battles, none leaving the hall without a good-natured jab or two. Can you picture a contest fit for the modern yeet meme when your buddy tries to toss an axe farther than he should? The feast was also an opportunity for courtship and marriage agreements, where offers might be exchanged over a platter, not unlike today's flash of mutual interest across a table, albeit recently sanitized rather than shared. To wield a drinking horn wasn't just an action, it was laden with symbolic meaning, a relational gesture fostering bonds of friendship, love, and unity. Food consumption had its playful counterparts, each veritable bite tasted more delicious against the backdrop of lively conversation. Imagine the cacophony, with vivid characters swapping yarns a la Norse tavern sitcom, a recurring plotline running through real and exaggerated adventures. Feasting silhouetted the Viking social order, weaving a complex net of customs that gathered people into shared experience, flavors fusing with camaraderie. There's an argument to be made that without these gatherings, the Viking spirit may not have burned so brightly. Historians are quick to attach debate to such claims, examining the symbiotic relationship between revelry and resilience, continuity and conviviality. The night presses on, layered with overlapping waves of music and merriment. The festival atmosphere fills every crevice until the first glow of dawn begins to paint the horizon. Eyes dream-filled, hands sticky with the remnants of shared dishes, you emerge from the feast satisfied, sensing connections not only to those sharing the table but to a long tapestry of Viking tradition. With hearts full and spirits high, let's glide next into the world of everyday Viking meals, where the satisfying presence of family and communal dining threads the narrative ever onward. As the Viking dawn breaks over the settlement, painting a serene canvas with hues of gold and amber, the communal life begins to stir. You find yourself amidst the gentle churn of everyday routines, where morning fires are kindled, and the quotidian art of preparing meals is set in motion. Viking life, beyond the grandeur of feasts, involved simple, nourishing meals shared in the warmth of family homes. Picture a typical Viking household, where humble ingredients are transformed into meals that sustain both body and spirit. The air is filled with the comforting scent of porridge simmering over an open flame, an ancient cousin of your modern-day oatmeal routine. A simple repast of oats or barley, enriched with traces of dried fruits or nuts collected during harvest, provided the morning's burst of energy for a day of toil. Everyday meals were often orchestrated with tactful simplicity, their foundations supported by the availability of staple crops and the ever-changing cycles of nature. As mealtime approaches, families gather around the hearth, the room alive with casual conversation and the clatter of wooden bowls. This isn't simply eating, it's about sharing life's ebb and flow, the gratitude of breaking bread together resonant in each gesture. Consider the midday meal, which might include a hearty serving of fish, a staple for coastal dwellers and land-bound alike. The Vikings' expert knack for fishing yielded an abundance of herring, salmon, and cod, often served alongside bread made from whole grains. This symbiotic relationship with nature's larder ensured variety, a nod to the Vikings' adaptability and wisdom, or, perhaps, the culinary equivalent to your own quest for the best avocado toast recipe. As the day winds down, supper often unfolds as a reflection in miniature of the bounteous feasts. Imagine an evening meal featuring what remains of the day's catch or hunt, paired with earthy vegetables and complemented by tangy skyr. Weens intertwined as parents pass down proverbs and traditions around steaming bowls, building a foundation of Viking knowledge that resonates like a historic cookbook passed through generations. It's these scenes of small, everyday joys that highlight the core affection Vikings held for their communal experiences, painting a life where meals were rife with intimate interactions and storytelling. Historians, in examining tattered remnants of Viking lives, continue to ponder that seemingly soft line dividing necessity and pleasure, a rationale brush stroking their culture. Even during work-filled days, the Vikings interwove leisure with sustenance. Gatherings on the fields or coastlines might include moments of rest and playful mock battles, aligning modern meal-escaping tactics when the office lunch break offers respite. Such routines continuously fortify both physical needs and spirits. Intriguingly, Vikings maintained a symbiotic relationship with mead ale, their favorite go-to drink to complement daily fare. Though more modest in consumption than at feasts, a horn of ale brought refreshment, easing conversation and boosting morale. Again, this echoes today's ethnographic studies on social drinking culture and its ubiquitous presence across cultures and time. Moving through this tableau of Viking domestic life, you gain new admiration for their resilience and community spirit, marveling at how meals threaded their lives into a tapestry of shared human experience. It encourages reflection on how we, today, consciously weave social connections in the fabric of our own culinary journey. As we leave behind the whisper of day-to-day routines, it's time to journey into the broader world of trade and cultural exchange, where Viking ingenuity turned outward to acquire new flavors and items of wonder from far-off lands. Venturing beyond the familiar confines of Viking settlements, you find yourself at the bustling heart of a vibrant trading port, where the convergence of cultures brings new flavors and exotic goods into Viking life. Picture this scene: longboats lining the docks, their wooden hulls laden with treasures from distant shores, eager traders keenly bartering with eager anticipation of fresh stories and taste encounters that transcend their Nordic roots. The Vikings were not merely raiders but astute traders, their networks stretching across Europe and beyond to the Byzantine Empire, and even to the reaches of the Arab world. This seafaring curiosity allowed them to access spices and goods hitherto unimaginable to those confined to their native forests and fjords. Let your mind meander through marketplace stalls, touching silks and feeling the warmth of spices lingering beneath your fingertips, a sensory delight opening doors to new culinary experiences. Spices such as cinnamon, black pepper, and exotic saffron stoked the flames of Viking intrigue, expanding the flavor profiles of their meals with their vibrancy. These treasures, so novel and highly prized, elevated dishes once simplistic into something altogether marvelous. The aroma of cinnamon lingering over Viking porridge traces unexpected spice routes linked back to an age defined by discovery. Historians and archaeologists forever debate the scale of spice trade among Vikings, ever hopeful to uncover another peppercorn hidden in the crevices of history. Trade connections went beyond spices. Picture Viking markets teeming with textiles, glasswork, and metals, diversifying their diet and daily life. The influx of silver and other non-native items hints at a sophisticated economic exchange system, where craftsmanship flourished alongside the culinary arts. It's a narrative any modern trade executive might admire in their pursuit of market diversity. Amongst these foreign exchanges lay the fruition of collaboration. a blend of cooking techniques across cultures. Imagine Viking homes adapting these newfound spices into traditional meals, creating fusion flavors like roasted meats infused with an aromatic spice crust worthy of raved reviews today. The intersection of culinary styles gave rise to dishes whose influences can still be traced within Nordic cuisine. Trade introduced not only tangible items but also stories, tales of far-off places that inspired both curiosity and creativity in fare. As you walk through these vibrant passages, soaked in multicultural chatter, consider the implications. Each item exchanged offered an opportunity to broaden horizons, enrich palates, and herald a novel means of self-expression. Amid such deliberation, there's a veil of humor glad to step in. After all, who's to shed light on whether Vikings ever encountered their own version of buyer's remorse, realizing that spicy Indian curries were perhaps not best tackled with berserker bravado? These trading pursuits underscored the Vikings' intrepid spirit, their adaptability, and their capacity to celebrate diversity, characteristics taught as rigging lines in their approach to the world. It's an indisputable mark of humans' enduring thirst for innovation and novelty. With newfound appreciation for the cultural, economic, and culinary exchanges that shaped the Viking diet, let us now close this exploration by reflecting on the legacy of Viking cuisine. A testament to resilience and delight, this journey spans through mouths of long-lost kin and echoes within the culinary artistry of today. As our journey through the verdant and hearty world of Viking cuisine draws to a close, take a moment to reflect on the lasting legacy these resourceful seafarers have imprinted on modern culinary landscapes. From sprawling feasts to the humble daily repast, each meal teased out the untamed spirit of these warriors of the North, shaping contemporary Nordic kitchens with an indelible mark of history. At the heart of Viking culinary tradition was the ethos of local sourcing and sustainability, as unyielding as the fjords themselves. This relationship with the land provided a blueprint for today's farm-to-table movements, where seasonal ingredients are championed and appreciated. Just as the Vikings adapted to their environment, modern gastronomy embraces this synergy, mindful of regional authenticity and nature's offerings. Ambling through today's farmers' markets resonates with the Vikings who spent moments alongside wild forage collecting their bounty. Viking dishes, though perhaps less elaborate than gourmet modern fare, spark a certain medieval romance when reimagined in current dining experiences. From buttery gravlax to dense rye breads, echoes of ancient recipes transform modern tables, inviting us to appreciate flavors with historical resonance. Even the simple act of fermenting and pickling harkens back to those days by cold shores, extending a nod of recognition to shared preservation wisdom. As you savor that next bowl of skyr or mull, a spice-laden mead from an avant-garde brewery, consider the ancient fusion of cultures fostered by Viking trade that enriched such flavors. Many cross-cultural exchanges masquerade now as classics deeply embedded within the global palate. It's evidence of how these tactile traces of Viking exploration continue to bind together past and present. Yet, perhaps most enduring is their mantra of community, of sharing meals under a canopy that matched stars. Vikings would revel in gatherings, drawn to the power of storytelling over shared plates. Today's social dining trends mirror these long-ago boisterous halls and flickering hearths, reviving cultural kinship and connectivity at every culinary opportunity. Historians often ponder the precise legacy left behind by Vikings. What parts of our lives still echo with their footsteps on frozen grounds? The narrative arc of their culinary journey, intertwined with the pursuit of flavor and resourcefulness, offers clues within anecdotal heritage. As you retreat from this exploration, the vibrant tapestry of Viking cuisine lingers, its flavors, techniques, and traditions casting shadows that archetype resilience, adaptation, and delight. In paying homage to the culinary voyage you've undertaken, remember these inveterate explorers and their spirited feasts. Their influence shaped not merely taste, but the marrow of human curiosity and buoyancy. Topped with a light jest, they're perhaps our historical forebears of the ultimate potluck Sunday. May their gastronomic odyssey gently tinge your dreams as you drift away tonight, holding close the sweetness of honeyed mead and the warmth of well-remembered company. Word count, 1090. The journey now gently calms as evening deepens. Words soften in length and tone, bidding you to rest amidst tender reflections. Allow the rich visions of Viking life to fade, leaving a velvet impression of mighty sails against pastel skies. Repose in the knowledge that stories hold steadfast across ages, crafting a shared warmth as each chapter closes. Know the threads woven in history reassure we are never too distant from ancestral wisdom. Comforted by echoes of hearth-lit laughter and calls of northern winds, breathe deeply. Let the world sink into tranquil sleep, serenity embracing you as night's balm cradles weary hearts. Now, as whispers of your entreat slumber softly near, surrender such musings into the gentle embrace of dreams, sweet ones to you.